if you made your healthcare model based on health, because we don't have health care, we have sick care.
Yes.
And nobody pays attention to you while you're healthy. They don't say, oh, you're healthy? Okay, let's keep you that way. Here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that individually, and we sometimes do it through fitness or supplements, but it's just, you have to be motivated yourself, and it's not part of our education.
Yeah.
It's not our mindset. And you said something profound and in alignment with that. We said, I don't say I didn't get sick. I say I'm still healthy. And where you put your energy, things start to manifest. Where the mind goes, the energy flows. So I think that's the mindset we want.
Hello, and welcome to The Unknown Path, the podcast where you hear the stories of unique grit and determination behind, quote unquote, overnight success, the unlikely synchronicities, the coincidences and connections, the untraveled roads forged one step at a time, the trials and tribulations, the hard knocks and the celebrations. This is an authentic sharing of human stories. Today on The Unknown Path, I'm joined by Mr. Lee Holden. Lee is a longtime practitioner and teacher of Qigong and the founder of Holden Qigong, where he has spent decades making ancient Chinese practices accessible and relevant to modern Western life. He is trained in traditional Chinese medicine, including acupuncture and herbalism, and in his early years studied and worked closely with the renowned Daoist master, Mantak Chia, assisting in the writing and translation of foundational texts on Qigong and Daoist internal arts, a lineage that deeply shaped his approach. Lee's work has since reached a global audience through international programs and features on American public television and PBS, sharing a grounded, embodied path to vitality and balance. At the heart of his teaching is a simple but profound focus, helping people reconnect with the body's innate intelligence and create the conditions for natural self-healing. Lee, I am stoked to have you on the show. We got it together this time round. Welcome to The Unknown Path.
I'm so excited to be here. This is great. And man, The Unknown Path is a fantastic name for a podcast and, an intention to explore. It is very Daoist in nature.
Is it? Well, I'm curious. Well, maybe just while we're here on that, talk to me more about that. What does the unknown path mean to you through all your lineage of trainings and studying?
Yeah. Well, I think it's an important question to ask ourselves. What's my relationship to the unknown? And most people, when we face the unknown, we do a couple of things. We tighten our muscles and we think our minds in this very contracted way. And we tell stories about the unknowns in order for us to feel more comfortable and safe, in order for us to feel like we can predict the future when we really can't. And, if you just ask yourselves, what am I going to think in 5 minutes from now? It's unknown. What am I going to dream about tonight? I don't know. How am I going to feel emotionally tomorrow morning? We just are facing the unknown in all these simple to complex ways. And for me, the relationship to the unknown should be met with relaxation, with a sense of surprise. And to the Daoist, where Daoism is a philosophy of life where Qigong and Tai Chi and Chinese medicine springs forth from. And Daoism really got its start by mystical men and women observing nature and being very observant and not thinking that they know, but just being profoundly in awe with the universe. And I think that's a very different approach to having this contracted mind, meaning that we constantly are thinking about the future and worrying about it as a way to predict or to somehow control this future space. And we go through life tensing our bodies because we don't know. So in that attempt to control, we're going to tighten our muscles. And really what this does is just dissipates our energy and makes us feel anxious and worried and depressed. when we could meet the unknown with more childlike wonder. And I think that's a really different approach that creates a lot of alignment to what we want as we move into the future, because quite frankly, we don't want to know, because the known is the past. And just to repeat the past is not something we want. We want to be, filled with surprises and just the right amount, really, and have more of that childlike spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah, yeah. That makes so much sense. And that contraction that you're talking about, if this moment right now is the only moment that actually exists, and the past is, in our recollections and, stored in our body and mind memory, and the future is only really a projection, and it all exists in this moment. If we're spending this moment contracted and tense, like you said, and then the next moment and the next moment and the next moment, then by the time you get to old age, if you get there, you spent a lot of time contracted. That can't be good for us to be in that state a lot.
no, no. And it is because it is a form of stress, and stress is the root cause of most illness.
Right.
And so when we're contracted, it's a fight or flight response. And it's great to contract and be ready to fight or flee if we're facing a grizzly bear. But if we're just going through life and everything's good in this moment, but because of our, incredible consciousness, we go into the future and we start conjuring up stress in some future time and then live as if it's happening right now, that is very detrimental to our health.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We'll explore more of that. I'm curious, Lee, if you could go back to, 7-year-old you, 7-year-old
Mhm.
Lee, he's kicking around, playing a game, he's, happy and somewhat innocent. If you could go back and share something that would surprise or delight or make that little boy wide-eyed and incredulous, about
Mhm.
your life, about his life that's in front of him. What's something that you could go back and share with him that would blow his mind?
It was as if you knew my 7-year-old self, because you said kicking around, and I was extremely interested in soccer at the time. I was obsessed with soccer. As a young little boy in the 80s, that wasn't the most popular sport at that time. And so for some reason, I was like, I need to play soccer. And in fact, 3 years later, I got invited to play on a team that traveled all around the UK. So it was a select group of Californians. So the whole state selected, maybe 20 kids, and we went over to England and played for 2 weeks. And that was one of the highlights of my young soccer career. But I think I would tell him, hey, guess what? We're following our dream of teaching people cool martial arts energy practices and mystical experiences and giving people mystical experiences. I think he would be like, oh, wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
not only was I obsessed with soccer, but I was also obsessed with Bruce Lee.
Were you?
Yeah. So, I feel like I'm doing, if Bruce Lee said, be like water, my friend, that's pretty much my career, teaching people how to move with relaxation and be like water.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm guessing, I might be wrong, but I'm guessing between the age of 7 and today, there were times where to discover what it's like to be like water, you had to experience what it wasn't like to be like water as well.
You sure did. Absolutely. And I mean, there's many different states of water, because water can contract and turn to ice. And that's kind of when when the chi isn't flowing, when the energy isn't flowing as well as it could, it starts to manifest in different states. And that's the beautiful thing about water. And that's how our bodies operate, because our bodies, some 70% water as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, many trials and tribulations along the path, because my path was, I would say, a bit radical and counterculture. And what everybody was telling me to do, I had to do something different to follow my heart.
right.
And so many times I had to come to that crossroads and say, gosh, do I want to do a corporate job? Do I want to go to grad school to get my psychology degree? Do I want to, like, I really like, well, that's what everybody's saying to do, but I had to stop for a moment, take that pause, and make a different decision from within myself, which came more from a heart space than a head space. And I think that made all the difference, to tune into a different wisdom that often isn't talked about in the Western culture. So to decide and make choices from your heart leads you along your path more clearly. Whereas when we just are listening to our headspace, it's often from what we've heard from society.
Yeah. Who who have you got to thank for you becoming a young man who knew to follow his heart rather than just go with what everyone was doing?
I really think my parents were really interested in this, and they often encouraged us kids to be different, and it was okay to be different, and just, what do you guys think about that? As opposed to, here's what you should do. As parents, just being very open. My dad was a judge of all things, and a very open minded judge, and my mom was an aerobics instructor. So I don't know if you know this, but if you put a judge together with an aerobics instructor, you get Qigong.
Apparently, there you are. Yeah,
There
that's
we go.
cool. That's cool, man. And look, were there moments when you questioned life, when you questioned choices? Were there moments, hard moments, where you were like, oh, am I in the right place? Or
Yeah, absolutely. In college, I took a trip across country with a friend of mine in a van. And our goal was to stop at most of the national parks and rock climb, mountain bike, and do Qigong, because I was just getting into this energy arts and I wanted to just be out in nature for the whole summer and do this. And when I came back from that trip and started my senior year at UC Berkeley, I thought, why am I doing this? Now I know I want to do Qigong. And people encourage me, you know what? Like, get your degree. You might just continue doing Qigong, but just have your degree. And I was like, okay, I think I'll do that. And I was like, by the time I graduated, I was like, well, at least I know now, I'm sure this is what I want to do. And I graduated and I went to Thailand and trained with my teacher and became his ghostwriter.
yeah,
So yeah, and that's what happened. I was like, okay, it was this confirmation all along the way that this is what I want to do.
yeah.
So,
So were you ghostwriting?
yeah.
Were you translating from Thai to English?
No, I wasn't. And if I back up a little bit, I had been studying psychology at UC Berkeley, and it was like my junior year. So let's say 3 years into my studies. And what struck me was that I hadn't learned one thing to make somebody feel better emotionally.
Right.
So like 3 years of training, I have nothing to share. Like somebody came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're studying psychology? Well, I'm really stressed out. What should I do?" And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, I know some labels of different diagnoses, and I know how to do some statistical analysis over some data." And so I was very dismayed, and I was wandering around Telegraph Avenue, checking out spiritual bookstores. And there's this one, Shambhala Books, that was just this beautiful little store. And, one of those places where you opened up the door and the incense hits you in the face, and there's
Yeah.
crystals and Buddha statues all over the place. And I picked up some books on Chinese medicine and Qigong. And I was like, wow, transform stress into vitality, and do this breathing exercise if you're feeling these emotions, and do this movement. And here's some pressure points if you're feeling stressed out. And I was like, wow, I'm learning more in my little browse in the bookstore than I did this semester.
Yeah.
And so I bought those books and I walked out of the bookstore, and the author of the books, I picked 3 books by the same author, had a flyer on the telephone pole that he was teaching a course, a weekend workshop the next day. So it was
Huh.
probably a Friday or something. And I was like,
Huh.
man, a sign from the universe, I'm going. So I
Yeah.
went to, the teacher was Mantak Chia, who was a well-known and still is a well-known spiritual energy master from the Daoist tradition. And so I went to his workshop, and luckily at the time I didn't have enough money to pay for it. So I asked the organizer, I said, "Hey, could I work this off somehow? I really feel like I should be here." And they were very welcoming, and I ended up with a little job in the back of the room selling his books. And he came to town every 6 months, and I would sell books, or they'd ask me to do odd jobs. One of the first writing jobs that I had was to caption a practice called the Inner Smile, a comic book. And so they have these little comic internal organs, little smiley faces, and like the little bubble that goes around to say what the dialogue was between the internal organs. And that was my job to write that up. So when I graduated, he said, hey, I asked him, I said, hey, do you have any work for me? And he said, how about you write my next book? And I was like, fantastic. And he said, well, that means you have to come to Thailand and you have to, spend 3 months out there, and you're going to be on the team of writers. And basically what I'd do is I'd go over to his house in the morning and we'd train, take notes, and then I'd take the course all week and I'd take notes, and then I'd organize it into a book. So there was no translating, but it was just writing it up based on his teachings, because he spoke English and taught in English, but it was sort of broken English, let's say.
What a wonderful, intuitive, what's the word? Ingenious.
Yeah.
A wonderful way to get yourself in there when you couldn't afford it and you couldn't afford to do the courses, but you found a way to work in there and do all the courses and learn at the same time and get yourself a job of sorts.
That's why you got to ask, I felt that shyness of like, well, no, I can't go. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
have an ask and see what they say. And thank goodness, because
How did you
that
first
really
come
changed the
across
course.
Qigong? Sorry to interrupt. How did you first come across Qigong? What was your first awareness that it even existed?
Well, the first awareness that it existed came about before I knew the word, because I had these energy experiences as a teenager when I was in high school, and I was doing guided visualization. So visualization and hypnosis, I was doing it to, help me play soccer better, basically.
Right.
And I was using, relaxation techniques. And I remember these little audio cassettes, and my parents had done some kind of, course on hypnosis. So sometimes they were counting us down and hypnotizing the children.
Right. Right.
And, but all of a sudden when I was doing the relaxation, I would feel electricity in my body, and I
Ah.
couldn't explain it. And I was thought, wow, this is weird. What is this? And I had no language for the experience.
Mm.
And so that was also why I was interested in Chinese medicine, because as I started looking up these books, I could see energy pathways, and there was, people talking about chi and life force energy and the sensations and the meridians. And I was like, that's what happened to me. So
Right.
that get me this curiosity, and to know that it also had use in terms of healing and psychological benefits was tremendous. Probably because I had some training in martial arts as a kid too. And so
Yeah.
kind of the martial arts and the hypnosis and the energy experiences and the being dismayed with the psychology education all kind of came together.
Kind of primed you for it. And,
It
that
did.
day when you walked into the bookshop and you bought 3 books by Mantak, and then as you were leaving, if something had have distracted you and caught your attention in a different direction from the poster on the telegraph pole, your life
Right?
might have gone in some different pathway to get to where you are.
Absolutely. Right?
I love these little synchronicity moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
You It seems like, it just so happens that you've been quite aware, as a boy, to be aware of that the embodied sensation of energy moving through your body. I think there's probably a lot of kids that might feel that, but not even really be aware of it, or not notice it, not kind of pause and go, hang on, what was that?
Mm.
So being as aware as you are, and then fine tuning that through the practice of the Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and also the Qigong and the energy work. What's it been like for you to be aware of those synchronistic moments as they
Mm.
occur in life?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because the awareness of synchronicities usually happen after the fact.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, gosh, I'm really glad that happened, or I made that choice, because I do remember after graduating, it was during the .com boom. And a
Right.
lot of my friends that were just a little bit older said, you got to get in on this, because, I'm I got stocks and I stock options, and I didn't really know what that was, but man, I've been working for a year and I made a few $100,000. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. But I really want to go to Thailand and go spend 3 months with Mantak Chia. So I was like, you know what? I could always come back and get a job. I don't know if this opportunity to work with Mantak Chia is always going to be there. So off I went, and just here I come, Thailand. And it was just one of the best things that I decided to do. But I remember it was very kind of touch and go, because I was like, the responsible thing would be to get a job and do this path. But my heart was really telling me to go to Thailand. In fact, one of my friends, he graduated a year before me, and he had a job, and he and I were, he was the one who traveled with me across country in the van, hitting all the national parks. And I said, hey, next adventure, I want to go to Thailand and go train with Mantak Chia. You want to come? He's like, oh man, I got a job, or else I would. And this, that, and the other. And I said, okay, well, God, I'd love you to come. And I'd hate to just send you a postcard from Thailand. And the next day he called me up. He's like, I quit my job. And he came with me.
Right.
And we traveled and we stayed with Mantak Chia for 3 months. And then we went off to Bali and did some training with some Indonesian energy masters. And I came home, and he ended up staying in Bali. He uh, he lived there for 10 more years, and then moved to Melbourne. So he never came home. He only vacations back home.
There you go. Is he still in Australia?
Yeah, he is.
Wow. You have to introduce us, man. I'll go and have a cup of tea with him and say,
I absolutely will.
yeah. So that's cool, man. That's cool. Energy work. I love listening to your stories about energy work and you feeling drawn to it. I too was drawn to energy and energy work as a teenager, and then through my 20s. I didn't have any formal training, and but was playing with it and experiencing it and fascinated by it. What's something, share one of the, I'm sure there's many, but could you share one of the experiences that you've had with energy work that listeners might kind of sit back and go, no, surely not, like, really? Can that really happen? Have you had any of those sort of experiences you could share?
Oh, you know what? I mean, I went deep into this world, and in fact, I mean, I made a docuseries about energy work, and more than energy work. So, and it was really the question on this question, like, what's possible when you really dive into this energy work type of stuff? Like, who are the Olympic gold medalists of energy work,
Yes.
basically?
Yes.
And when you go to India and Tibet and China and Indonesia, you're going to find some crazy masters that can do
Yeah.
things that are extraordinary,
Yeah.
and I often explain it like, well, you know, the NBA players do things we can't do. The performers, the singers, the dancers. I mean, you look at people that are really proficient at their craft, and they can do things that we go, wow, that is amazing. And it's the same with energy work. So that's where my path led me some, 20, 30 years into it. The docuseries is called The Superhuman Experience.
I
So
purchased that.
you did?
I did. Yeah. I knew your face was familiar. I'm like, I feel like we've met. I purchased your course, the series. I watched it all, man.
That's it. Oh my God. There we go. How
Yeah.
funny is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Superhuman experience. And
And it
and
was
so we found
completely worth every penny, by the way. If that's still available, that
it
docuseries,
is.
if it's still available, folks, go and grab it. I loved it. I shared it with my partner as well. So yeah.
Uh, Thank you for that. And it's only, I think, on our website, it's like $6.99 or something like that. And then there's interviews with Deepak Chopra and Wim Hof, and just all the cool thought leaders that have things to say about our human potential. And really, that's what it is. It's just an exploration in human potential.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's superhumanexperience.io if people want to go
Lovely.
check it out. It's
I'll
also
put that
on
in the show
Gaia.
notes as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful. And so, some of those incredible masters, I mean, we saw people that, lots of energy healers, which is incredible. And the feeling of some of these masters working on you, incredibly powerful. But then demonstratively, some of the masters could, we could wad up newspaper and light it on fire with not even touching it. Just one master, he didn't want to be in the movie, but he showed us uh, different things, but he was maybe 10 feet away, and he just took his two fingers and pointed it at one of the camera guys, and he burned a hole, like a hole maybe the size of of a nickel or a quarter in his shirt.
Wow.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and gave the guy a pretty solid burn on his skin too. It took a few
So can
weeks
you
to play.
point your fingers somewhere else, dude? What are you burning me for?
These guys are Jedis. I mean, they're,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Look, yeah, love that.
it makes you go wow, and it makes you go, is this really true? And there's an Indonesian group that trains people to see blind. They put the blindfolds on you, and you can perceive the room, and they do all kinds of incredible things. They pick out colors, shapes, and stuff like that with medical grade blindfolds. And we have a Russian woman who is in the movie doing it. But this is what we're finding. These things we found masters in all of these countries: India, Tibet, China, and Indonesia, that were all able to do the same thing, even though they don't know each other. They
Yep.
train differently. But when you trace it back, these kind of practices, they come back to ancient Indian Kundalini practices that then got one master in particular, Bodhidharma, traveled through Tibet and into China and started the Shaolin temples. So the Shaolin monks, these secrets sort of stayed in the Shaolin temples. And then the Cultural Revolution, a lot of the teachings moved to Indonesia. And so you'll see the Indonesian masters doing it as well. And there's different offshoots, and there's different practices. And over, some thousands of years, people develop different abilities, and it's
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing, man. When I was writing my book, I wanted to share a story, but I didn't want people to think I was crazy. So I ummed and ahed about sharing this story. And then I went to my brother and I asked him, my blood brother, my birth brother, and he's an engineer. He's a wonderful design engineer. So he has very kind of logical, real thinking. You know,
Mm.
he's not a meditating kind of hippie bum like I was for decades. Anyway. So I went
Yeah.
to him and I said, "Hey, brother, you've been with me when we've experienced energy work and telekinesis and movement of things and things that our current scientific understanding and laws of physics can't explain." I said, "You were there, right?" He said, "Yeah, I was there." And they happened. And he said, "Yeah, I was there. It happened." And I said, "Okay, well, I am going to put this one particular story in my book." And just a very short version of it, in Thailand and back in the day of internet cafes, when you used to sit and pay
Oh
by the
yeah.
minute to type
Wow. I wonder if we
the
were there at
internet.
the same time.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were
So
probably
this
sitting right next to each other.
probably sitting right next to each other. And I was there with my newlywed wife at the time, my then wife. We're not together anymore, but we were sitting in one of the little cafes on Khao San Road, and we were eating a curry, watching a movie up on the screen, and that little fan is blowing down on you because it's
Yeah.
100% humidity, and you're watching a movie, and there was an Indian magician busker out on the street, and he was doing his show, and he finished his show, packed up his show, walked inside the restaurant, walked straight up to us, like through the busy cafe of all the people, and he walked straight up to our table, and he came up and said, "Namaste ji." I said, "Namaste." He took out a 20 baht note out of his top pocket. He gave it to me and he said, "Please, sir, inspect the note." And I inspected the note, and it 100% was just a normal note. Then he took the note off me, he held it in front of me, right in front of me, above the table, put his other hand over the note like this, and then he let go of the note, and the note was hovering in midair in
Wow.
front of me. And then he said again, "Please, sir, inspect the note." Lee, I put my hands all around this note. There was nothing attached to the note, not possible. Now, I'm not a
Incredible.
faith believer. I'm a healthy skeptic. I'm
Yeah.
open-minded, but I want to see. I want to look and see. I studied physics in high school and maths,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wanted to see. Dude, I put my hands all around this thing. There was nothing attached to it. And now there's a little crowd of the waiters and waitresses leaning around watching, going wide-eyed, going, "What?" Anyway, once he realized I knew it was real, he took the note out of midair again, folded it up, put it back in his pocket. He said, "Namaste," and he left. He didn't ask for money. He didn't want anything from me. He just left. And me and my wife just kind of looked at each other and then didn't say a word and then just kept watching the movie. Like you're in Asia and things happen and you just kind of go, you normalize it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end of the movie, the first thing she said to me wasn't, "How did he do that?" The first thing she said to me was, "Why did he choose us?"
Uh-huh.
And the first thing that came out of my mouth was because we were ready for that information.
Mhm.
Now,
Absolutely.
sharing that story with you, I feel at home. I'm like, you be going, yeah, man, that's energy work,
That's
but
it.
you share that story with a lot of other people and they'd be saying, no, 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 you were tricked. He was just a
Yeah.
good magician and you were tricked. And I know I wasn't. So
Yeah.
it's possible.
Beautiful. It is. And that's the thing. When we did this film, we traveled with either a scientist or a doctor or both to do verifications on the people that because we wanted to validate everything that we were seeing. And yeah, there were a couple of magicians who we saw that were really good, and it was very easy to tell right away. So we probably did some filming with some 100 or so different people.
Right.
And I mean, the main thing is you want to use this work for yourself and create magic in your life. And the magic of energy work is health and vitality and
Yeah.
access to more elevated emotions and a clearer mind and a connection to a spiritual awareness. And those are the things that really create magic in your life that are verifiable from the inside out rather than the
Yeah.
outside in. And that's the true magic of this.
Where can people start? What's an easy entry for someone who's never done any, energy work on themselves or within themselves? Where's a good place for them to get a taste? And yeah,
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I mean, come see me. I think I'm my teachings are really accessible, and I love introducing people to energy work because that's my mission and that's my passion. HoldenQigong.com. So
uh,
Qigong is spelled
yeah,
Qigong. Holden Qigong, and Qigong means energy work. So Qi
right.
energy, Gong work.
Uh-huh.
It's the original energy work. It's the original breath work. It's part of Chinese medicine. It's just how do we work with our life force energy? And, somebody came up to me and I think you'll like this. And they're like, this is not for me. I don't believe in energy. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. You don't believe in energy? Well, there's something that's keeping you alive. What would you call that? And he's like, well, nobody knows that. And I was like, exactly. It's mysterious. Nobody knows what's keeping you alive. And we just put a word to it. The Chinese call it chi. The Ayurvedic yogis called it prana. Every culture had a word for this mysterious force that's beating your heart. And it doesn't matter what you call it, it's something there. And there's so much energy within you. Each cell in your body has energy.
yeah,
There's a spark that beats your heart, and you close your eyes, you can see images. There's no projector in your mind, there's no light source. So
yeah,
we run into the mystery in every aspect, but we just find it very ordinary because we're used to it.
yeah.
But there's ways to optimize your energy so that we live our best lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And look, I mean, even if you want to go down the rabbit hole of quantum physics, they all say it. There's nothing actually physical. It's all energy. You know.
I love that.
So we can go that way to it as well. I love that, man. People ask me, Jem, how are you always healthy? When there's a common cold going around or a gastro or whatever in the community, or the kids come home from school and they're not well, or, and it goes around. I always stay healthy through it all.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combination of things. I feel maybe I'm lucky I've got a naturally good immune system, maybe, but I think more importantly is that I've been doing energy work since I was a
Hmm.
teenager, and in my early 20s, I came across that book that I mentioned to you, and I think you knew it as well, The Urban Warrior's Guide by the Barefoot Doctor. And it came from a
Hmm.
Daoist background, and it was energy work
Yeah.
stuff. And I started this in my 20s, and it became habitual. So when I go to sleep, as I'm going to sleep every night, I do this little process where I open up my crown chakra and I let the universal energy
Hmm.
flush through me and flush through and do an energetic kind of clean. And I do a little circulation around this particular pathways in my body. And I've been doing it every night for 35 years, you know,
Mm.
and I can't prove it other than the lived experience. But my lived experience is that it's good for health and vitality.
Big time. I mean, no, I mean, that is a similar story of the Qigong practitioners that they just, I asked Mantak Chia once, I said, "Hey, Master Chia, do you ever get sick?" And he said, "Oh, I get sick all the time, but it's usually just for a few seconds
Right.
because it just happens on the energy level and then you clear it out before it manifests physically."
Right.
And that's the beauty. It's the same thing. The pathogenic chi comes in, you're just able to clear it quicker before it lodges in and
Uh-huh.
goes through a cycle of like
Yeah.
sinuses to a sore throat to a cough.
Yeah.
You just clear it faster.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I also never say the word sick. I always, rather than saying I don't get sick, I intentionally say I always stay healthy. So there's the
Yeah,
power
for
of word
sure.
as well. But so, man, so what is life? We're recording this in December 2025. It'll air, I think, late Jan or early Feb 26. So for those of you listening to this, this is back last year. What's going on for you now? What's this chapter like? What's the
Yeah.
life of Lee like right now?
Right. Well, I mean, one of it is teaching and continuing teaching and traveling. I travel a lot. I just got back from Oman, for example, teaching Qigong to a bunch of very wealthy oil businessmen in Oman and teaching them about energy work. And I
Wow.
thought, how did my path lead me here? And
Uh-huh.
I was, right before that, I was at a health and longevity conference in Dubai. And it just brought me all over the world from Brazil to the Middle East to Europe to right here in my backyard in Santa Cruz. And then I broadcast workshops and classes online all the time. So I have a subscription so people can take classes with me each and every week. And then I teach, condition specific workshops, little 3-hour things on anxiety and sleep and back pain and things that people can just do in a very practical way to make their lives better.
Yeah. See, thank you for sharing that. When someone hears that, they might be like, "Oh, I want that. I want my version of that." Right? Wanting the end result of flying to the Middle East to, coach wealthy
Yeah.
people and conferences but there's been, I'm guessing, I'm not, tens of thousands, multiple tens of thousands of hours of dedication and practice to a path that you felt compelled to be on. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're exactly right. And because I have a Qigong teacher training too. And I like, okay, I take the teacher training and then I get to do all the things that you're doing. And like, yes, maybe, but also takes a lot of foundational work before you get to the interior design. You got to put in the hours and you build a community and you develop your own teaching style and you develop your own clientele and special voice message that goes around this work. And then that's when the surprises happen. That's when you're like, wow, how did I get here? How did I get what led me to being in Dubai teaching a bunch of doctors Eastern wisdom on longevity? There's
Yeah.
many, many hours and steps and relationships that were built along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. What's the first relationship that pops into your mind when I ask you about fundamental or foundational relationships, apart from Mantak, because you've mentioned him already?
And you know what it was is every time I flew to Thailand to work for Mantak Chia, and I did 12 trips to Thailand in those early few years. I'd always stop in China and train with other masters. And these are masters that I would just find in the parks or through word of mouth. And I'd go study and train with them. And a lot of times there was no language that we could share. They didn't speak English, I didn't speak Chinese. Sometimes I hired a translator, but often it was just body language and the communication through energy. And I'd spend a couple of weeks in China. Sometimes I spent some time in Japan. I went to Indonesia. So I learned from many different teachers in various ways of communication to piece together how I would approach teaching this to Westerners. I wanted to come back and be like to my friends in Silicon Valley, to my soccer playing friends, like, here's what I learned and here's how I can explain it to you.
Yeah.
And by doing that as an intention, I was able to communicate this kind of esoteric practice to very, let's say, normal Westerners, just doing normal things like working and parenting and having issues with stress and anxiety and pain in their bodies and just making it very applicable because people thought, oh, Tai Chi, Qigong, isn't that activity that old people do in the park? And I was like, yes, and it's also for you. And to
Yeah.
be able to do that was my mission. And I made VHS tapes, and then I went on to make DVDs.
Yeah.
And luckily, those DVDs got put on public television. One show in San Diego turned into a national TV show for 10 years.
Wow.
And so that's how I kind of got my start in a bigger way.
Yeah. Yeah. Tai Chi and Qigong, both are they related?
They absolutely are. Qigong is the mother of Tai Chi. So
Uh-huh.
it is the exercises and the principles that go into a particular kind of Qigong energy work. But Tai Chi was really originated as a martial art,
Yep.
a martial practice. But it's taking all those Qigong principles and applying them into self defense and martial principles. Most people practice Tai Chi now for the same reasons that they practice Qigong, which is to cultivate energy, to
Yeah.
relax, to be physically fit, all of those things. But Qigong is simpler because you don't have to memorize a form.
Uh-huh.
So the movements just repeat and it's very easy to learn. So I often recommend people learn Qigong first and then progress into Tai Chi.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, amazing. I lived in Taiwan for a little over a year many years ago, and two things that you would love about this. Well, because Taiwan, through that cultural revolution, when a lot of the culture was being decimated in China, thanks
Oh,
to
yeah.
Chairman Mao, and so not only did the a lot of the Chinese dynasty treasures get hauled across on boats over to Taiwan, and they now live in this stunning museum in Taipei. You might have been there, like incredible museum. But also a lot of the cultural
Mm.
understandings and wisdom and practices moved across with people. And so some of the more pure versions of the ancient Chinese ways still exist in Taiwan. And so it was very normal to wake up early in the morning on your way to work and see lots of people in the parks practicing Qigong. And also living there as a foreign national working there, we had access to the healthcare system, and the healthcare system, subsidized and basically free, was Chinese medicine. I
Yeah.
remember we were blown away because we were getting acupuncture and herbal medicine and Chinese doctor visits and everything, all covered, all paid for. And Chinese massage, all covered by the government. I was like, wow, this is a cool place to live.
So good.
Did
Yeah.
you
And
did
that's
you
the
s-
thing.
you did you study Chinese medicine?
I did. Yeah. I'm an acupuncturist and a Chinese medicine doctor. So, yep.
Uh-huh.
I came back. I started teaching Qigong at the local Chinese medicine college. And I started teaching Qigong there and designed their Qigong program because the name of the school describes Chinese medicine. It's called Five Branches. And the five branches of Chinese medicine is acupuncture, herbs, nutrition, massage therapy, and Qigong. The thinking is that if you practice those five branches as preventative medicine, you don't get sick or you you ward off illness and you don't get sick as frequently and you maintain health. So it was true healthcare, preventative medicine. And in fact, the roots of this were as long as you were healthy, you paid your doctor. As soon as you got sick, you stopped paying.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So sickness was the failure of the medical system where
Wow.
now sickness is the reward because nobody gets paid unless somebody is sick.
Oh, dude, that is gold. I just want to
Right?
pause on that for a sec. That's massive, man.
Think
I
about
I have
that.
never heard it put like that before. Never even thought about that before, but that is actually quite profound, isn't it?
Yes. If you made your healthcare model based on health, because we don't have health care, we have sick care,
Yes.
and nobody pays attention to you while you're healthy. They don't say, "Oh, you're healthy? Okay, let's keep you that way. Here's
Yeah.
what you need to do."
Yeah.
I mean, we do that individually and we sometimes do it through fitness or supplements, but it's just you have to be motivated yourself and it's not part of our education. It's
Yeah.
not our mindset. And you said something profound and in alignment with that. We said, I don't say I didn't get sick. I say I'm still healthy. And
Yeah.
what you put your energy things start to manifest. Where the
Yeah.
mind goes, the energy flows. So
Yeah.
I think that's the mindset we want.
Yeah. It seems like such a big thing to shift in our Western indoctrinated mindset and institutionalized way, that's not healthcare, it's sick care. That's what it should
Hmm.
be called. Yeah. Do you have hope for the future? Are you an optimist, or where are you at in terms of the state of the play? Oh, okay. So let's go big. This is a big question, and could go anywhere really. But the state of play at the moment for humanity. What comes up for you when I even just mention that?
I mean, a lot does, because there's many different parts of my mind that have their own unique opinions. And if I step way back, I realize that there's an intelligence that's moving through me, that
Mm,
there's a force that's beating my heart and breathing my lungs, and that has created this body and has created nature. The same force that's within me is blowing the wind through the trees and moving the waves in the ocean. And there's
mm,
an intelligence here that's at play that I don't understand.
mm,
And, that I can have faith in, that say, things are unfolding in an intelligent way because they always have. And I don't see it. So when I look out and see, oh, the wars and the way we're treating the environment, and I can get really wrapped up and, you know, want to take action. And I do. But at the same time, I step back and I remember that there's a higher power that's very intelligent, that orchestrates everything in a way that my conscious mind can't. And then I relax into that.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You kind of answered another question I was curious about with you, which was your relationship with spirituality and what that means to you, and you kind of
Mm,
touched on that just then.
yeah. And yes, it's true. The Tao means the way things are. And we have a spirit. It's just in the same way we have a body. You say, I don't believe in my body, or I don't believe in spirit, but it's just there in the same way you're breathing right now. It's like, that's why the breath is called inspiration in spirit. It's something you can't see. And so there's all these invisible forces that we can't see with our five senses, but that are very real. In fact, there's a saying in Qigong, life is ruled by invisible forces. And one of those being gravity. You can't see it, but because of that gravitation, you are here on this planet. And there's a force that keeps all the cells in your body together. And there's a force that when you eat your breakfast knows exactly where to put all those nutrients without you having to think about it. And so, there's this higher intelligence that's always at play. And in Chinese medicine, it's called the three treasures. Jing, Qi, Shen is body, emotions, and consciousness, or consciousness also being spirit. And so those are always there all the time, intermingling. We use the analogy of water. So the body is the most dense form of energy, emotions less so, and then spirit is very elusive. But the analogy of ice to water and water to steam is very much like body, emotions, and spirit. The spirit would be the steam. The body is more like the ice. Emotions more like the liquid.
Yeah,
But whether it's ice, liquid, or steam, it's all H2O. It's all the same thing. And that's how the Chinese medicine see these different aspects of who we are. They're all here now,
yeah,
and they're all working together.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Another thing too, I just would love to ask your take on this, or from what you understand or what you've learned. I find it interesting and kind of funny in a way that this most recent medicine, this Western, quote unquote, Western medicine, has just been playing catch up. And in the past would say, oh, the Chinese understandings is not true, or it's rubbish, or the Indian Ayurvedic is rubbish, it's not true, or the indigenous Australian Aboriginal understandings of medicine is not true, or same with Amazonian, whatever. And now Western medicine is actually playing catch up and going, "Oh, they were actually onto something," right?
Right?
So
Yeah.
as much as Western medicine can't explain how meridians happen or work, they're starting to
Right.
be able to measure energy and movement and stuff like
Sure.
this. So this beautiful, intricate and accurate mapping of the energy lines of the body, the meridians of the body, that comes from ancient Chinese understandings. Do those ancient Chinese understandings, do they date back to kind of pre what we thought was civilization, and now we know there are ancient
Mm,
civilizations that existed a lot longer than what we originally thought. Does it go all the way back there, do you
mm,
know, or did it come about in the last couple of thousand years, or do they
mm,
have an idea of the history of where they got this understanding and
mm.
this knowledge?
Right. And it is filled with mystery. Even like, how did they start doing acupuncture? Nobody really knows who started like making these very thin needles and putting them in the body. There's speculation, but it's because it's so old. So the written recordings go back 4,000 years.
Yeah, wow.
So the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Chinese Medicine, which is 1200
Yeah,
and full of, it's the first time we saw humans saying, do these exercises because it'll help heal these ailments, medical prescriptive exercises.
right.
That's where we see the origins of Qigong practices, medical Qigong practices. And then there was herbs and acupressure and acupuncture points and kind
Yeah,
of a barefoot doctor's guide. Like the Yellow Emperor is this mythical figure, but he gathered all the knowledge from all the local shamans and
right.
started compiling information. And
Wow.
so as we go back before these written records, it was part of shamanistic culture where they were invoking, invoking forces. Let's say where there was the sun or let's invoke the force of the rain because we want it for the crop or fertilization or whatever it was. But then what they did in Chinese medicine somewhere along the lines, these shamanistic mystical practices, they made them relevant for everybody. They turned them into practices, into movement. So instead of it was just the shaman doing the dance and invoking the spirit and then telling the people what to do, it was now became more systematic and scientific for everybody to practice.
Mm,
And so it took the divine out of a few people's hands and into everybody's hands.
right.
In the same way, we still have that sort of, if you want to talk to the divine, you're going to have to talk to the priest or the monk because you lay people, you don't know.
Mm,
So this is a very empowering type of practice for everybody to start to be connected to the mystical, and that
mm.
the divine wasn't something for the select few. It was for everybody. Actually, we all have those capabilities and we all have those connections and we all have this energy and we all have a spirit. So it is for everybody. And that's what I love about this practice. It's that we don't have to be disempowered and find out information secondhand. We can have the experience for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it's a profound difference, in the ways of approaching it. Wow, have you listened to the telepathy tapes? The podcast telepathy tapes?
Oh, my goodness. I did start to listen to that. Yes. And so fascinating. So
Yeah, I
wild.
feel like
And
well, this is it. This is the public service announcement. If you haven't listened to the telepathy tapes, season 1 and season 2 is currently, I'm in the middle of season 2 right now. If you
mm,
haven't
mm,
listened to it, you must listen to it. It's
mm,
time, folks. It is time. And I'm just so excited because the open-minded, skeptical, healthy skeptical exploration into understanding that which we haven't been able to explain through the beautiful sharings of initially nonverbal autistic people and then others, and speaking with savants and also people who have experiences with the non-physical that Western science can't explain yet, or maybe ever. But because of the way that the makers, Kai Dickens and her team, approached this subject, they got remarkable results. And because it's, beyond a shadow of a doubt now, there's now money being poured into big, extensive studies and research going into it now in the right way. Because I don't know whether you remember hearing this. It's fascinating when you try and do research on these nonverbal autistic people who have telepathic abilities and other abilities. When you go into the research with a negative energy, they feel it and they clam up
mm,
and it clouds their ability to do what they do. So then the person with the negative energy goes, "See, I told you it wasn't true. I told you couldn't do it." And that is that in quantum physics, when we observe something, the way we observe it determines how we see it.
mm.
So if you go into someone with this negative energy of "you can't do this and I'm going to prove you wrong," you actually create your own reality in that moment. But when you go in open-mindedly and still doing all the double blinds and all the testing and making sure it is actually real, but you go in open-mindedly with love, not fear, you get a different result. And I think that's just so beautiful. And for people like you, Lee, who have dedicated your life to working with energy, which is something that you
Mm,
can't see, but you can feel. I
mhm.
don't know, it must be heartening to see that there's a
Mm.
shift. There's a shift coming.
Big shift that has happened and that continues to happen with all the research because, at the end of the day, truth is truth. And there's, objective truth that's out there, but there's also your own subjective truth to validate your own experience of life because you're a unique individual is really important that, how you see the world and how you perceive it matters and has influence. Just like
Mm,
you said, the observer effect in quantum physics is such a
yeah.
beautiful experiment in that regard. It just the mind has power, and we could look at the quantum physics, but you could also just look at medicine and say, just think about placebo effect a little bit. You
Yep.
you think something and you believe something to be true, it becomes true in your body. If you just stop and think about that, that's all we're talking about, and everybody agrees on it.
Yep. And
It is
placebo effect
mystical.
is real. Western medicine goes, yes, that works. That happens. Placebo effect
Yeah,
happens.
that's real.
Yeah, and Western science also admits that there are savants, and savants are people who have access
Yeah.
to the informational field, and whether they were born like that or they had an accident and then all of a sudden became and have access, and there's no debate around that. We agree that exists. So if that exists, then, I've got this tattoo on my arm for people who are watching the YouTube clip, they can see this, and this one up the top here, which is in ancient Sanskrit. And Talia and I got matchy tattoos a year ago in India together, and it says, which means anything is possible.
That,
So,
oh,
Lee, I'm aware of your time, and soon we're going to be, weaving our way towards the end of this conversation. Before we do, talk to me about 2026 for you. Is there anything, anything new that you're leaning into, or is it more of the same? And also within the context of how rapidly things are changing for humans at the moment, what's your gauge on the future?
Yeah, and for me, I mean, yes, more of the same, but improved ways. And I'm really focusing on community experiences, elevated experiences, tapping into our humanity. Because I think as things go and advance technologically, it's even more important for us to get back to nature and our own human nature. And part of that is just how do we stay connected? How do we have these kinds of conversations? And use technology for deeper connections, free up our time so that we can explore mystical realities and that spiritual side of ourselves. And I feel like if we can use technology to free up time, we could spend more of our precious life force energy exploring consciousness and energy work and the human potential and all of that stuff. So I'm excited about that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm leaning into for 2026.
I love that. Yeah. You're a man after my own heart. I'm hoping for the same thing. I've even started, you know, prescribing to my clients, the people who pay me to help them. And when I introduce them to a new AI and it saves them 3 hours and they sit there going, what? That
Hmm.
just took 15 minutes and it used to take me 3 hours to do that piece of work. And then I say, good, now pause, stop.
Hmm.
Don't go to the next thing on your to-do list. Half an hour ago, your day was booked out. Now you've got 3 hours you didn't have before. Go.
Hmm.
Go and connect with someone that's important to you. Go for a walk in the park. Take your
Hmm.
shoes off and walk with
Hmm.
someone that you care about and dive into the relationship, or go and practice Qigong.
There
Go
you
and
go.
meditate. Go and swim in the ocean. Go and sit in the trees. Right, all of this sort of stuff that people have said we haven't got time for. That as a species we used to have a lot of
Mm,
time for. Post-industrial revolution, we became, bought into this idea that our worth, how valuable we are as a person, is in the knowledge that we have and how hard we work, how many hours we work, and how much knowledge we've got. And they're the two things that AI is going to do way, way, way better than us. So yeah, man, I agree. I'm hopeful that we have time to come back, like you said, to come back into nature, to human nature
Mm.
and nature. I think that's a
Mm.
beautiful way to put it. Thank you. So we will have ways for people to follow your work and engage with you in the show notes. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to, or that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, I hope people are inspired to do a little energy work, with me, with themselves, with other teachers. I think it's just incredibly valuable. And I think in terms of when we think about what's valuable in life, to move away from just money and to move to these other treasures of energy, of health and vitality, and of consciousness and spirit. I think those are truly the treasures of life to explore. And I feel like, unfortunately, we spend more time looking at our money than our own life force energy, and more time on screens than our own consciousness. And we just need to create that balance and do our inner work so that we can really enjoy the things going on in and around our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. That's beautiful. I know enough wealthy people who have said to me, the more money I created, the more miserable I got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because no one ever shared with them or taught them how to do exactly what you just shared and suggested. So if there is one thing that you are inspired to take away from listening to Mr. Lee Holden have a chat with me, it would be to just carve out a little bit of time to treat yourself to the exploration of your own energy and the life energy that's around you, and how you can engage with it. And it's an exploration that's not only healthy, but it's enjoyable. It's quite an enjoyable thing to do for you. So thanks, Lee. That's awesome, man. I'm
Thank
really glad
you.
our paths crossed. And
So great.
yeah, thank you for coming on the show, brother.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, to those of you listening, you made it to the end of the episode. Well done. You get a smiley face, little sticker. Please share this with anyone that you think will get something from this episode. And go and check out the other episodes, and I'll see you at the next one. Thanks again, Lee. See you, mate.